What's going on, guys? We have some good news today. CPI just released, and this is the first time that we've seen it come down in multiple months. Our March 12 release here shows a 2.8%. It was forecasted as a 2.9. Our last month was a 3%. And you can see that as the months have gone on, we have just been continuing basically to see inflation rising ever since October. We had inflation coming down up to October, and then things changed and it just was steadily rising. This is a positive in terms of getting potential Fed rate cuts. If inflation keeps rising, this would force the Fed to keep rates where they are. Now keep in mind, guys, we do have another inflation read coming tomorrow as of this upload, March 13th, and this one is PPI. This also has been rising pretty consistently ever since basically August. August we saw a drop. The August read we saw a drop, and then from there it basically steadily rose. If this can come in lower for the first month, that would be a massive positive as well. Now the market's getting an okay reaction. Risk on appears to be running a bit. We have Tesla up pretty nice, Nvidia for example up pretty nice. The safe stocks pulling back a bit because they have been running recently, as there have been elevated fears of recession, etc. So it makes sense here to see red where it is and green where it is based on the inflation data we got today. Hopefully PPI comes in lower as well. That will also likely increase the odds of more rate cuts this year. Now looking at the Bitcoin miners today on this news, we're mostly green, but there are some red. We have Iron down just a tad. CleanSpark right now, as of this upload, flat. We'll see where that goes. Some of the Bitcoin miners are doing relatively well, like Stronghold for example. Bitfarms surprisingly is doing pretty good. Other than that though, basically pretty flat. Some are up 0.5%, some are down 0.5%. Not really a whole lot going on there. Now, what about Bitcoin on this news? Well, Bitcoin right now, per trading view, is down 1%. Let me show you something interesting that Bitcoin has done cycle to cycle. Bitcoin in the last cycle did revisit its previous peak. You could see that the 2017 cycle, we had a candle close right about at 15,000, but we did have a wick up to 21, 22 on the monthly. And in the next cycle, our bear market, our 2022 bear market, we basically tested, 15,000 or so, never breaking under these prices, never breaking under the body. Is our previous cycle 69K going to be our support? Well, following the past, Bitcoin has never broken its previous cycle peak after its run, even in the following bear market. But what do you guys think? Do you think this will be the first time that we see Bitcoin break its previous cycle peak? Or do you think it will hold up? Bitcoin is getting very close to testing its 74K previous top. We saw this run after the spot ETF hype. We saw a run all the way to 74,000 before cooling off, a multi-month cool down during Mt. Gox fear that brought us down to 49K. If Bitcoin comes down towards this 74, 75K, this will be, in my opinion, a fantastic buying opportunity if we get it. One thing we have going on for Bitcoin is a bullish divergence. This is only on the 4-hour, but you can see that the price went lower while the RSI went higher. Buyers are starting to pick up Bitcoin. Buyers are starting to step in. And you can see that back here previously we had a bearish RSI divergence. The RSI went higher. However, the price was already starting to drop. And I'm sure you guys can see the start of this pattern, this falling wedge. Keep an eye on it. If Bitcoin can break to the upside, we will get a good reaction in my opinion. But right now we are facing a descending resistance and starting to form a descending support. Now here's an article that I found interesting. It's titled 4 Signs That 76.7K Bitcoin is Probably the Ultimate Low. Bitcoin's correction may be over, supported by derivative markets, a weak dollar, and contagion from the US budget crisis. And like I've said, guys, this is a lot like the Mt. Gox pullback, the 74 to 49K pullback. That was a 33% drop. This article cites the previous bear market, saying that some analysts argue Bitcoin has entered a bear market. However, the current price action differs significantly from the 2021 crash, which started with a 41% drop from 69K to 40,000 in just 60 days. A comparable scenario by today's prices would mean a decline to 64,400 by the end of March. However, like we have talked about, the current correction mirrors the drop from 71.9 on June 7 to 49,000. It also mentions the dollar. This article also mentions a potential government shutdown on March 15th. Stating that if an agreement is reached, we could see a positive reaction from risk on and Bitcoin. It also cites the real estate market, mentioning that according to this February 27 data from the U.S. National Association of Realtors, home contract signings fell to an all-time low in January. And also an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal showed that over 7% of Federal Housing Administration insured loans are at least 90 days past due, surpassing the peak of the 2008 subprime crisis. And to sum it all up, Bitcoin's path to reclaiming 90,000 is supported by a weaker US dollar, historical evidence that a 30% price correction does not signal a bear market, resilience in Bitcoin derivatives markets, and contagion from government shutdown risks, and early signs of a real estate crisis. You know, Bitcoin has never experienced a recession. If we do hit a recession, this is basically unprecedented. We don't know what to expect from Bitcoin. I personally would expect that we would drop. It is a risk on asset. If everything else is selling off, I could definitely see Bitcoin selling off along with it. I don't think Bitcoin is a safe haven for economic uncertainty on the short term. However, on the long term, Bitcoin will win. But Bitcoin, in my opinion, will react negatively to any worrying recession news, any worrying economic data. Bitcoin will react negatively. Now, looking at the Fed Watch tool after the CPI release, you'll see that by the year end, we are still projecting 3 rate cuts. And perhaps PPI can bring rate cuts even sooner, but our soonest rate cut is expected in June, and this is a 58% chance of one 25 basis point cut. We're at a 20% chance that we remain with current rates by June. But keep an eye out for tomorrow and the PPI. Luckily, we saw a somewhat favorable CPI, the first monthly decline in quite a while. This is exactly what the Fed needs, inflation to come down. And hopefully this is the start of it again. Until recently, we have seen inflation steadily rising, which kind of caused the Fed to have to stop with rate cuts. Now, how are you guys feeling about Bitcoin? Do you think we revisit the previous cycle peak of 69,000? Or do you think we will hold that level and basically never breach it again, like we have seen in previous cycles? Thanks as always for watching, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.